Hello and welcome back to a very special Masters edition of Hockey Talkie. My name is Clay. Thank you for tuning in. The Blackhawks have made a trade today. Stan Bowman had the gall to interrupt my Masters viewing experience. If you weren't aware, I'm pretty into golf as well as hockey, and I like to take off every year to watch the Masters tournament. And so I'm not really too happy that Stan has made this trade and really interrupt my leisure time, but at the same time, I can't really complain because I also always complain when he makes trades while I'm actually at work and I can't make a video. And now that I'm off and he makes a trade and I can actually make a video, I really can't complain. Anyhow, let's look at the trade. The Blackhawks are sending all the Lucases to the Florida Panthers, forward Lucas Wallmark and defenseman Lucas Carlsson, in exchange for forward Brett Connolly, defenseman Riley Stillman, forward Henrik Borgstrom, and a 2021 7th-round pick. So from the departures side of things, the Blackhawks are giving up a guy who they just signed in free agency this past offseason in Lucas Wallmark, who they also waived not too long ago. A guy who just didn't really fit the Hawks as well as maybe they thought he would this past offseason. I think part of that is probably due to the emergence of the rookies this season. They just haven't had a reason to kind of take those kids out and put in a guy like Lucas Wallmark. So we're getting rid of him. And then we're also getting rid of Lucas Carlsson, who hasn't really been in the lineup all that much either. So from a departure side of things, the Hawks aren't really taking anything away from their current lineup. Now, in terms of acquisitions, the Blackhawks are getting 28-year-old, 6'3" right winger Brett Connolly from the Florida Panthers, who has a $3.5 million cap hit for this year and the next 2 years. So that's kind of your bad contract that the Blackhawks are willing to take in this year with all of their LTIR cap space. It's not a terrible contract, but Connolly really hasn't played well this year, so it looks a lot worse because of that. He did have 33 points last year and 46 points the year before. Both those years kind of hovering right around 20 goals. So maybe he can turn things around with the Hawks. Now, Florida seems to be, looking to clear some cap space with this trade. So maybe they're trying to maybe make a splash move before the trade deadline early next week. But for the Hawks, this is a contract that the Hawks are willing to take in, and it's also a contract that the Hawks can expose for the expansion draft this summer, depending on what they choose to do. So it's not guaranteed that the Hawks are going to be stuck with this contract for the next 2 years. Now, regardless of what the Hawks may do in the future with that contract, at this moment, it is a bad contract. And so there needs to be a sweetener in this trade deal for the Hawks to take him in. And you look at the other pieces of this trade and you see Riley Stillman. Nah, he's not really a sweetener. 7th-round draft pick. No, that's not really a sweetener. That leaves us with Henrik Borgstrom. Borgstrom is a 23-year-old, 6'3" centerman who was drafted in the first round back in 2016. So it makes sense why the Blackhawks are getting him in this trade. We all know how much Stan Bowman has loved to get former first-round picks in recent years. Dylan Strome, Alex Nylander, Brendan Perlini. Now Henrik Borgstrom is one of those guys. So Borgstrom is the sweetener in this deal for that bad contract. Now, Borgstrom hasn't played a whole lot in the NHL. He played a little bit with Florida, but obviously hasn't really stuck. Questions on whether or not they utilize him properly, who knows. But right now he's over in Finland playing, so he's not coming to play for the Hawks this season. You'd still need to get signed to an NHL contract, so the Blackhawks are essentially getting his signing rights in this deal. But I'd assume they would sign him prior to him coming over, hopefully next year. Now, you may be wondering why the Blackhawks went with Borgstrom as a sweetener instead of, say, a first-round draft pick in one of the upcoming entry-level drafts. And I think the answer to that is, yeah, first-round draft picks are pretty nice and flashy pieces, especially around trade deadline time. But at the same time, draft picks, even first-round draft picks, and especially low first-round draft picks, because Florida, they're not going to have a lottery pick here, they're a bit of a crapshoot, and you still need to spend some years developing said prospect. Instead, the Hawks are getting a guy who, hasn't really stuck in the NHL yet, but he's essentially already developed and still has yet to theoretically hit his prime. He's 23 years old. Forwards usually hit their prime around 24, 25 years old. So He's a guy who the Hawks obviously probably see something in, and quite frankly, if there's anything I trust with the Blackhawks organization, it's their European scouting. And so if they see something in a guy who's playing over in Finland right now, all right, bring him over. If he can win faceoffs, bring him over. So I think this is a pretty decent trade for the Hawks. I think ultimately it fits the needs for both Florida and Chicago, especially if Florida goes on to make a splash with that new cap space they acquired here in this trade. I certainly don't think the Hawks are done either. They got a lot of cap space still left to take on another bad contract and get some more sweeteners. They also are going to be wanting to get Brett Connolly in the lineup, and to do that you have to take someone out. And who do you take out? That might be a question that gets answered via a trade. So we'll see what happens in the coming days. We got a weekend and another day or two before the trade deadline. So there's still time for more things to happen. Side note, Jakubczak got put on waivers today by Arizona. I don't know if you saw that, but could we see a return? We didn't see a return of a former Blackhawk via this trade, so I wouldn't rule it out, but ultimately I don't think it's happening. Anyhow, let me know your thoughts about this trade down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Hockey Talkie. Hope you got some enjoyment out of it. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Appreciate that as always. But most importantly, stay safe, make good decisions. I'm going to get back to watching the Masters, and I'll see you next time.